Welcome to a KeySmash Studios Unreal tutorial. In the previous video we did functionality for a blacklight. Essentially just as the blacklight goes over the different posters, the poster will change and show a number that corresponds with the order that our statues should go in. So in this week we're going to be doing the statue puzzle part. It will just consist of creating a trigger box that will determine when the player is putting something onto the statue placeholder. So we're going to begin by putting one of each statue in the positions on this little table. So you're going to want to do the game objects that we're able to pick up. And you're just going to be putting one of each color onto this. And essentially what we're going to do with these is we're just going to have the different ones disappear and reappear based off which statue we want to be there at what time. And just to sort of organize this, we'll create a folder and we'll just call it statue folder. So from here we're going to go ahead and go to our C++ classes, and we're going to create a new class, and this will be a trigger box class. And we're just going to name it statue trigger box. Just skip through the compiling. Okay, so now that our code is compiled, we're actually going to start in the statue trigger box header. The first thing we're going to do is include some things that we'll need later on. So we're going to start by including the game framework for the actor class, as well as including our character controller header, as we'll need to cast the character controller and its actor components later on. And then the final one that we'll be adding is the time manager. Because we'll have a timer for whenever we're removing items in a little bit. So the first thing we're going to do is go ahead and create our area for our begin play, which is just a protected. And then inside it, we'll just have our virtual void begin play override. And then we'll move on and create our public variables. So we're going to create the constructor for our statue trigger box. And then we're going to create some properties. So our first property is going to be an array of statues, and we'll make these edit anywhere. And it's just going to be a T array of the actors, and we'll just call it statues. And eventually we'll put into this array the statues that we put onto the counter in game. The next property will be for our timer. And this will simply just be an F timer handle, and I'm just going to call it remove timer handle, because we'll be using this to check when we're supposed to no longer say the item was recently removed. And now we need to create a property that's going to be the answer for the specific trigger box in the scene. So we'll just call this int answer. And then for this one, you also want it to be edit anywhere. So we can change it in the details over in the game. And then we want to give it a category so we can find it, and we'll just call it answer. And then our final property is going to just be a bool. And it's going to be called present, and we'll use this to see if a statue is already present in the position that we're trying to move it to. And then finally, we'll create some functions. So our first function is going to be the function that takes place whenever our trigger box is interacted with. So this will be essentially the same as the blacklight one. So we just have a class actor called overlapped actor, and then another class actor called other actor. And then our final function will be the function that we call using the timer, and it's just going to be called set removed false. And that's our whole headers. I actually forgot one more property and one more function. So we'll go ahead and go back and create a property that will be another T-array of bools, and this will be the statue answers. And we want this one to also be edit anywhere. And then for the final function, we're going to call this one check answer, and this is what we'll call at the end to make sure that whatever the user has put onto the table is the correct answer. So now we'll go ahead and move on to our .cpp, and we'll go ahead and begin with our constructor. So as we did with the blacklight, we're going to go ahead and create our constructor, and in this we will add what happens when we overlap with the trigger box. So on actor overlap, on actor begin overlap, we'll add the dynamic, to call the function place into box. And essentially what's going to happen there is that anytime our player overlaps with this trigger box, it will call this function place into box that we'll make in a minute. So then we'll go ahead and do our begin play. And in here, what we're going to do is essentially set all of our actors that are in the scene to hidden in the game. So we want to take the total number of our statues and iterate through them. And each time we want to cast an item, and see if our statue is one. So that way we don't throw any null pointer errors. And then to make sure there was no errors thrown. And if there weren't, then we'll take the test item and we'll take its set active and set it to false. And then we'll take the statue and we'll set it hidden in the game. And this will just, at the beginning of the game, iterate through all of these and set all of them to no longer active. And then we also want to go through our answers array that we created, which will be 3 long as we have 3 statues. And we'll iterate through this as well. We'll take the statue answers and we'll add to it false for each one so far, as none of these answers have been answered correctly in the beginning, as nothing's there. So that's our begin play function. So then we'll move on to our set removed false function. And the purpose of this function is essentially so we can delay when our character controller considers something just removed to be false. So we want to cast our character controller. And then we'll do get world first person controller. And then get character. And then we'll make sure that no errors were thrown with this. And if the character was found, then we'll take the character's property of just false, just removed, and make it false. And that will be our set removed false function. So next we'll move on to the big function, which will be our place into box function. And we'll add the parameters for this. And then inside this, we want to do something similar to the blacklight statue, at least in the beginning. So we want to make sure that the other actor that we've interacted with exists. And we also want to make sure that that other actor isn't this actor. Once we've done that, we can move forward. And what we're going to want to do is make sure that none of the items that we've interacted with are active. So we'll go through all the statues of this specific trigger box. Oh, make sure to fix that. And what we're going to do is we're going to cast an item. For each of the statues, make sure that the item exists. And then we're going to check if the item is set active. And if it is, we'll set present to true and break from the loop because we know that at least one is, so we don't want to place anything. And then if it's not, we'll go ahead and set present false. So this is underlined because it's actually get active, not is active. That should handle that. And now what we want to do is after our loop, we want to see that nothing was present. And then if nothing was present, we want to cast another item. And this one will be the one that we interacted with. We want to make sure that the other actor is in fact an item. And so we'll check to make sure that it was found. And if it is found, then we'll go ahead and cast a character controller. The same way that we did before. And then we'll check to make sure that the character exists. And if they do, then we're going to go ahead and check which item has been placed. So we'll check the temp item, the one that was the other actor, and we'll check its item ID and see if its F name is blue statue. And then what we also want to do is see if our character's wield ID is equal to 1, which is the item ID for the blue statue. So then if this is true, we're going to go ahead and get the just removed property from our character and we'll set it to false. Sorry, we'll set it to true. Because essentially what we're doing here is the other actor should be the item that we're holding. And if it is the blue statue, we want to say something was just removed from the character. So we're also going to then remove it from the inventory, going back to the function we made a few videos ago. And then what we'll do is we'll go ahead and get that timer. We'll do this through get world, get timer manager, set timer, and then the remove time handler that we made. This, and then we'll get the function that we want to use, which is the set removed false function. And then we're going to say how long we want it to wait until it calls it, and we'll just do 0.01, and then we'll just set this in part to false. From there, we want to see if statue 0 exists. And then if it does, we want that statue to no longer be hidden in the game. And then we also want to then set this item's active to true. So we'll cast another item. That will be our blue statue. We'll make sure that it was found. Sorry, we'll call this one the true item, as this is the one we want to activate. And then we'll set our true item to be active. And then what we're going to do outside of this is say that if this triggers box's answer, which we'll set in the details over on this side later, is 1, then we want to go and set our statue answers 0 to equal true, because blue will be our first answer. And then we'll just say else statue answers 0 to false. And now we'll essentially do the exact same thing for the other two statues. So you can just copy paste this portion and we'll add an else if. And then we'll come here and our next one is the red statue and the wheeled item should be 3. And then you want the answer to be 2. And then you obviously want the statues portion to change. So anywhere where you have statue 0, you now want it to be statues 1. And that should, and then you also want to change the statue answer 0 to statue answers 1. And now you can go ahead and paste again for our green statue. And then you want the ID for this one to be 2. And then the answer for this one to be 3. And then every place that we have a 0 will now have a 2. And we'll just double check those real quick. So then we can go ahead and create our final function, which is the check answer one. And then essentially in this one, all we're going to be doing at this point is making sure that all of the statue answers are true. And if they are, we're just going to be debugging for now. Next video, we'll make it to where a door opens. But for this video, we're just going to debug so we know that it works. So we will do a debug that just says solved. And that is our CPP for our statue trigger box. So we'll go ahead and compile. Okay, and now that our code is done compiling and compiled successfully, we'll go ahead and put these trigger boxes in the areas of our statue. And I'm also going to drag this up into our statue folder. And you can obviously make these as exact as you want to be center, but I'm just going to do it real quick. And then what we want to do is we want to go to our answer. So for the first box, we want it to be 1. For our second box, we want it to be 2. And for our third box, we want it to be 3. And then we'll also go to each one and create an array of 3. And then we want to drop the correct statue into each array. For box 1, it's blue statue 2, red statue 2, and then green statue 4. And we'll just double check that. Blue statue 2, green statue 2. Oh, it's red statue 4. So we'll switch this to red statue 4. And green statue 2. And then we'll do the same with the other ones. So this should be blue statue 3, green statue 3, red statue 3. Yep. Blue statue 3, red statue 3, and green statue 3. And you want to make sure these are in the order of blue, red, and green in the box that you're interacting with. So do the same here. And this should be blue statue 4, green statue 4, red statue 2. Blue statue 4, green statue, red statue 2, green statue 4. Then we'll save that. And then we'll go ahead and test it out. So we'll pick up all our items. And then we know the order that they go in because of the blacklight posters. So red is the second one, blue is the first one, and green is the third one. So we'll go ahead and take blue. I actually might need to make the trigger boxes bigger. So we'll just click on all the trigger boxes right here, just expand them and move them out some. Save and try again. Okay, so I've discovered the issue, and one of them is that we have this is visible bool protected. So we want to get rid of that, and then we're going to move it down here to our public and make it a property that is edit anywhere. And then we'll just paste that same thing right there. And the reason this is going to be important is because I don't have the actual items on this one. It's simply just base objects. And so whenever you collided with the box, it couldn't tell that this was an item. So we'll change that in a minute. But first, we're also going to want to go to our statue trigger box. And then right here, as you can see, it should say name. This is what I originally had it as, is the ID, but we actually want it to be the name and not the ID. And then you want to get rid of where it says fname. And that's what it should be like in your CPP now. So we'll go ahead and compile this. And then once this is done compiling, we'll go ahead and switch these out for these objects. And now what we'll do is we'll just go ahead and put another blue statue in the scene, go to this blue statue, copy this component, paste it on this one, and then we'll just drop that blue statue to be a child of the character. And then we'll do the same with both the green and the red. And then you want to go to your character controller, go down to wielded items, and change these out for the new ones that we've added. And then you can save that, and then delete these. Save that. And then we'll go ahead and play. I forgot you want to go to these, and you want to make it to where it's not visible, which will just make it to where you can't pick it up. And then you also want to turn off physics so it doesn't drop. Okay, now that works. I don't know how they ended up on the ground, but so now whenever you go to it, it removes it from your inventory and places it down. And then also you can pick them all back up. I think we can actually make the trigger boxes slightly smaller. So we'll adjust those just a little bit. And then what we also need to do that I forgot is call our check answer function. So you're just going to do that after. You can actually do that at the end of if the character exists. So we'll put it right here. So go ahead and delete that. Compile again. And then we'll click play. And then remember that the code is green is at the end, blue is at the beginning, and red is in the middle. And so now if we go to our So the reason that the check answer function isn't working is because it's 3 different objects within the scene. So whenever the first one says that the answer is true, it still says that the other 2 are false, even if the other 2 are true. So that's why it's not becoming solved. So essentially what we need to do is move this into our character class and have the pointer go to the character class and let the let this class know that the answers are correct. So we'll just copy and paste all these things over from this to the character class. And then we'll also take our statue answers. And we'll just put it below this. And then what we can do is go back to our statue one, delete this, and then where we're setting these true, we actually want to be doing it to the character. So we'll just point to the character. And this should handle it, so that way whenever we do solve it, it will know that we solved it and provide us with the debug of solved. So we will compile again. Oh my gosh. So once we've added character to all of those, we need to go up to the top and take our for loop and add that to the begin play in our character controller. And now we'll compile. Alright, so let's go ahead and play. Now we'll just go ahead and solve the puzzle by placing it with green, blue, and red. And now if we go grab our output log, you can see here that it says solved. So we know now that it's working. So in this episode, we scripted some trigger boxes that react to items when they're put into it and place them based off of the item that you're holding. And in next week's, we will tie this, instead of just debugging the word solved, to this door over here to rotate it open so the player can go inside and check out the Morse code that will be flashing from this light. So thank you for watching. Like and subscribe. See you next time.